Joining me today, we do have a breast cancer survivor, Samantha Graham-Maré, who is also the Deputy Minister of Energy and Electricity. Thank you for joining us today.
Lucy, thanks so much for having me, and I'm really happy that I can share my story.
I'm so glad. Often just by sharing the experience that you've had is going to inspire somebody else. So tell me, what is your current cancer diagnosis?
So currently I am still taking tamoxifen, which is obviously an estrogen receptor drug to keep me clear from, hopefully, a recurrence. And I still have another 5 years on that medication, but I've been clear for 5 years already.
So for those of you who are watching, tamoxifen is actually a treatment drug for breast cancer. And I believe it has some quite daunting side effects.
Yeah, look, the side effects are not fun. I'm actually on a Facebook group about tamoxifen side effects. It's that bad that there's a Facebook group about it. So, it puts you into menopause. There's unbelievable hot flushes. There's skin dryness. There's hair loss. There's weight gain. Joint pains, cramps, and the list goes on and on and on. It's unbelievable. Yeah, I think every day people find new things. Weird, your eyes dry out. There's mood issues. So yeah, it's not a fun drug to be on, but certainly, as I keep saying to people, the alternative is far worse.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that that's what the Cancer Association does, is often we're dealing with a lot of those side effects. So not only has it got this physical toll on you, it's also the emotional toll that it has on those side effects, because it's like having menopause on steroids. I can just imagine. Can't be fun.
Yeah.
When were you diagnosed with breast cancer?
So I've actually had it twice. The first time I was diagnosed was in 2010. I found a small lump in my left breast, and then went in and had the usual fine needle aspiration, and then they sent me for a biopsy. So I had stage 1 breast cancer. So, and then the second diagnosis I had was about a year and a half after I came off tamoxifen for the first time. I suspected it was a very, very deep, very large lump in my right breast. Suspected that there was something not too kosher there. Had it checked out, and I had stage 3 breast cancer in my right breast at that stage. So that was 2018.
Wow, so that's a double whammy, right? And then I know with some of this medication, you're probably on for it for a couple of years. Yeah,
so the first time I had the breast cancer, because both my cancers were HER2 positive, obviously they put me onto tamoxifen. So the first time I had it, I was 41 when I had it the first time. So I was still not menopausal at that stage. So I was on tamoxifen for 5 years, put me straight into menopause. And then the minute I came off it, I came out of menopause. So, and then a year and a half later was diagnosed again, and I've been on tamoxifen now since 2019. And again, as you said, straight back into menopause on steroids. So I think I'm now finally in menopause, but will remain on for another 5 years just to be sure.
Yes, and often, with that, with some of the medication, they say if you can just make it those first 5 years. But I think just hearing the words you have cancer must have been quite devastating. I mean, when you said you found the first few times you found the lumps, what did you do? Was it a self-breast exam, or was it just something that you picked up?
All right. So the first one, my ex-husband actually found, and it was very near the surface on the top of the breast, so it was quite easy. And I always said to people, it felt a little bit like a marble under a blanket. It was a hard, very defined, very easy to tell lump. And I'll never forget, I was diagnosed on the 1st of October with breast cancer the first time round. So it was literally into Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And I had to go to Cape Town at that stage. We lived in the Eastern Cape. Well, I still live in the Eastern Cape, but I had no medical aid. So I went down to Grooterschuur to their combined breast clinic and went for the tests. And then they had a problem with the biopsy, so I had to go back for a biopsy a second time. And I have to tell you, hearing those words, it's horrifying. I mean, you just never think it's going to happen to you. I had no I had no reason to suspect that I would ever be somebody who got breast cancer. It's not in my family. I didn't have any of the risk profiles. I was 41, so it was a bit of a shock. The second time around, I don't know. I just had a feeling there was something not quite right. And as I say, it was a deep, very ill-disguised lump, but I just knew something wasn't right. I think once you've had it, you every time you get an ache or a pain, you get a headache, you think you've got a brain tumor, get a pain in my bone. I think, well, that's it. I've got bone cancer, so it's once you've had it, you always think you're going to get it. So you are more alert and are more aware and are more attuned to what's going on in your body. So, yeah, so both times it was through, self-diagnosis, I would say.
It's such an important point about knowing your body and knowing if something's wrong, and knowing those lumps. It's one thing we always advocate and educate is do constantly those breast self-exams and do those regular checkups. And I think once you've been through that one experience, you are more aware of it, but it's also an opportunity to educate the friends, the sisters, the family, and even saying to a male colleague, do you do a checkup for yourself, and have you, got something for, your spouse? Is so important. And knowing when something's not right. And I think as women, we are so busy running around and so busy with work that we sometimes forget that we need to take that time and actually really do check. So when you were diagnosed, how does it affect you in your day-to-day life currently at the moment?
Well, I actually often said that the work I do, because I'm so passionate about what I do, I think that's what got me through my treatment. So the first time I was diagnosed, I had decided to stand as a councillor for local government elections. So we were in the midst of that election campaign, and and my ex-husband at the time said to me, maybe you should stop and focus on your health. And I said to him, I'm certainly not going to allow something like this to stand in the way of me and my dreams. I'm not going to give up on a 5-year plan because I have breast cancer. And when you're having the treatment, when you're having chemo in particular, chemo gave me terrible insomnia. I used to sit up for hours every night, and it gave me an opportunity to do some work. And the focus then obviously was on my treatment. But because we lived in the Eastern Cape, I had to spend a lot of time away from home. So when I was having the radiation treatment, I had 21 treatments. So I was away from home for a month. And I literally came home 10 days before the election. But being able to focus on the election in that campaign really helped me keep positive, keep focus, have something to look forward to. And I managed to get myself elected, so that was great. And then in the 2018 campaign, I was standing to be a member of parliament. And I had bilateral mastectomy in the July because I had decided I wasn't taking any more chances. And 2 weeks later, I had to be interviewed for my first part of the process. And I was supposed to travel to Grahamstown for that. And my doctor said to me, you can't travel. It was the week that I had my almost stitches and staples removed. They said, you can't travel. So I had to be interviewed on Zoom. And I had there were 40 people in that room. I was so ill. I was feeling so awful. I was in so much pain. And I remember saying to my husband, I know that I've bombed this interview completely. Anyway, I didn't, luckily. And then in the midst of chemotherapy, and one of the problems people don't talk about with chemo is chemo brain, which is this unbelievable fog that you live with. Tamoxifen also gives it to you. So, I've had chemo and tamoxifen brain for about 20 years now. I'm convinced of it. And that's the excuse I'm sticking to. So then I had to go to another interview, which was, and then I'm walking there, I'm bald, I've got chemo brain, I am bloated from steroids, not at my best. But again, because I had this dream and this aspiration, I had something to really work towards. I fought a by-election from East London while I was having treatment because, again, I didn't have medical aid both times. So the second time I went through healthcare in the Eastern Cape, which is almost worse than having cancer, let me tell you. The hospital
has its own challenges.
It was horrendous, especially after the surgery and being in the hospital after the surgery it was so traumatic. But yeah, so I do believe that the work I do, and what it did was I kept thinking to myself at the end of the day, all I'm doing is fighting cancer. I have a wonderful husband. I have a wonderful life. I have a job I love. So at the end of the day, fighting cancer was the only thing I had to focus on, whereas so many of the women I encountered in public health care are fighting so much more than I was facing. And that also put a lot of what I was going through into perspective. I didn't get time to feel sorry for myself because there were people way worse off than I was.
Oh, I can believe it. We have an advocacy department, and that is what they're dedicated to, is to helping all those patients that contact us on a daily basis, not having access to treatment, or they come to us very late. So it's often a case of not enough education or not being screened on time. Then they go to the hospital. So they've traveled from these far distances. They now get there, then they get told, no, your appointment is not today. You've got to wait another 6 months. In another 6 months, it's just going to be too late. And we're talking about often the underserviced, because I mean, an underserviced could be also in an urban area. It doesn't necessarily mean it's in a rural area. So I think that's amazing. I think just hearing what you went through also shows incredible resilience. And as you say, is the real reality of, being diagnosed and breast cancer and everything's pink. But every day, just having to deal with that, like you say, it was the no hair, it was having to still be on Zoom, still having to live day to day. And it's just a really important role that people have to play and understand the public health system, how we need to collaborate with our departments and give them advice. You spoke about the second time, and it must have been quite daunting, the anxiety you've often felt whenever something happens and you get a little nagging, maybe you get a headache or there's something in the eyes. You spoke about the chemo, what do you call it, the brain fog? Absolutely. So many other survivors have mentioned that, where you just forget those little things, but it comes back. What was the anxiety like for you? I mean, if you've got a headache and then something appears and then you think the worst. I mean, did you ever get that?
Oh, I still get it. I made my doctor give me a bone scan last year because I've been getting terrible bone pain. Again, it's a side effect of tamoxifen, but I was getting terrible bone pain in my wrist, in my one leg, and in my neck. So I had a full bone scan at the end of last year because it just started to stress me out because, breast cancer in particular, does spread to the bone. It does go to the liver. I've just had a liver test done, because now you have regular checkups. So there is a lot of anxiety around. Yeah, I always say, that first diagnosis, it pierces your armor of mortality. And suddenly you no longer live a sort of carefree life that, tomorrow's another day and I'm going to be fine. Every day then becomes a day where you're like, okay, I'm okay today and I've made it through today. So, and I think getting it the second time is like, my God, I wasn't anticipating getting it a second time. You think you've done everything. And the interesting thing is, again, having gone through the public health system, when I became a member of parliament, I got onto a very good medical aid because that's part of it. And it's a mandatory thing for a member of parliament. You have to go onto the medical aid that's provided. And so I could go into a private oncology center for the first time since I'd been diagnosed in 2010. And my oncologist at the time said to me, she said, if you had been with us the first time around, you would have had Herceptin. And the chances of you getting cancer again would have been limited because you would have had the correct treatment. If you go to public health care, you have it's almost like a standard. I mean, both times you have the final aspiration, you have the biopsy, you go in, you have your surgery. So the first time was a lumpectomy. The second time was the bilateral mastectomy. You then go for chemotherapy, and then you go for radiation, and then you go on to tamoxifen. And that seems to be the standard practice that happens. So it's almost like a one-size-fits-all that is hopefully, going to keep everybody fine. Same thing when I had to go for radiation. They said to me, we've only got one machine in PE, so the waiting time is 9 months. Now, everybody who's had cancer knows that if you don't treat it within 6 months, then you might as well not even bother because you haven't then utilized the correct time frames within which to address with any sort of stray cells. So again, because of the contacts I have and because of I'm privileged, I could transfer to Freya Hospital in the Eastern Cape and go to East London to have my radiation. but not everybody has that luxury.
Absolutely.
So it's bad enough having to deal with it, but then having to fight. So you're fighting cancer on one side, and then fighting an incompetent, under-resourced public health service on the other side, which is just not acceptable. Poor people should have as much access to good health care as anybody else, and they don't.
Absolutely. It's something that we deal with every day. In fact, we had to start a specific cancer telecounseling line because of that. And it started actually in COVID because patients were so desperate for someone to talk to need that emotional support or guidance, or just knowing how do we cope. And I think it's actually very sad, you're right, because many years ago, we used to have the most amazing hospitals. And I still think there are still some good state hospitals. But there are pockets of ones that are really under-resourced, not enough medicine, not enough machines. It's a constant battle where we have to make sure that we are liaising with them and always putting at the forefront people like yourselves who are cancer survivors, and also even educated and saying this treatment, like you say, you were given the standard treatment, and everybody's got a unique journey or a unique experience. It might affect you in a different way, and it might affect another woman in another way. It's just, it is a reason why the Cancer Association exists as well. Tell me, the effect on your family and your friends. Did you find any change in them once you were diagnosed?
Yeah. So at the time I was diagnosed the first time around, I was married. I had 2 children. My daughter was 20. She was 10. My son was 14.
Sure, young.
Now I can feel I started to get emotional. My daughter took it the hardest. And then when my hair started to fall out, she was completely traumatized. I mean, because I looked like a burn victim. I had these sort of patches of no hair. And then the one day I just said to her, look, I'd like you to shave my hair off for me. So she shaved it off, which kind of empowered her to deal with the whole process. She still has PTSD. If I say to her, look, I need to speak to you, then she has a complete meltdown because she doesn't know what's coming. And then obviously the second time around, I was already divorced, but I was involved with the most wonderful human being who I've subsequently married, who went through the whole process with me, and who proposed to me in my bald state while I was still having treatment.
How romantic.
Gosh. And so he also, he battled terribly, I think, and that's the fear. And I always say, when you are being treated, all the focus is on you, all the attention is on you, all the support is with you. But the people around you are left trying to cope and trying to deal with the pain and the fear. And, it's easy to deal with it when you're in the midst of it. I always say, I can be strong. I can deal with it. I can take what comes my way. But the people around me can't. And for them, they've got nothing to allow them to cope other than just hoping, that against all odds that I'll be okay. So my mom took huge strain. I think it's terrifying for a mother, no matter how old her child is, to watch her child go through this. But I have an incredible family, and we have. I live in Graaff-Reinet in the Eastern Cape, and we have an incredibly active cancer association there. They started the Pink Trees for Pauline program, so every year the whole of Graaff-Reinet is covered in pink fabric. They raise money. You get to sign somebody who looks after you and comes to see you. I also made use of hospice. I had a hospice nurse who looked after me because people think hospice is just for people who are dying, but it's not. She came and checked my wounds. She just checked in on me regularly. She still checks in on me at least once a month to see if I'm okay. So I had an unbelievable support system. I had all the support I needed, but I do know that the fear and just the sadness that enveloped my family was just awful. And there's little you can do to help, So I think that was the tough part of it.
Yes, talking about support, and it's, cancer may impact the person, but the side effect or the associated effect is on those family and friends. And often, we also deal with our children's program where the focus is on the child being diagnosed, and then they forget about the sibling, the brother or the sister, and the mom. And oh gosh, no, it is. And having a support is incredibly important. And Pink Trees is a wonderful association. We work together, so all the funds raised through the Pink Trees for Pauline, we actually use specifically for patient care, giving, food packs and making sure there's any medical devices they may need, a wheelchair or any of those items. So it's a very good partnership, and very much support is very important. That's the one common thread that every cancer survivor speaks about, having that support. Just finally, to wrap up, what would your message be to the public and also then to other cancer survivors?
So don't think this can't happen to you. This can happen to you whether you have one risk factor or no risk factors or a multitude of risk factors. Take care of yourself. Make sure that you're doing checks. Make sure that you can detect early so that you can prevent the really, really bad impact of cancer, that you can be, you can be saved. At the end of the day, the faster you are detected, the earlier the interventions come, the greater the likelihood of you becoming a cancer fighter and a cancer survivor. So I think that's really important. And it's important to make sure that you surround yourself with people that can take care for you if you are diagnosed, that you ask for help, that you link up with organizations like CANSA. I stayed in the Cancer House in PE when I went down for my second diagnosis. They've got a lovely house there that can be utilized for. And my mom came with me. We stayed in the house together. They were just amazing. So there are incredible organizations that do amazing work to support people going through cancer, and also to support the families, as you say. So, talk about it. And we need to put more and more pressure on government to make sure that they are providing the right sort of health care, particularly for cancer patients, but for everybody. I keep saying poor people don't have choices, which is why we have to give them the best available options. So it is something that we will continue to push for. Go out, get yourself checked, make sure you're fine, and keep checking and keep being healthy.
Thank you. I am so glad that you were able to experience that service. It's the CANSA Strelitzia Care Home. It's in P, actually Kobego now. And yes, it's one of the most amazing homes. I'm so glad. In fact, our cancer care homes are so unique to us in that, at least the patients can stay there while they get in treatment. And, we provide the transport and the food. I'm so glad of that. And thank you for that message. Thank you for being willing to share your fears and your real experiences, and that positive message for women. Keep on getting screened, get educated, find out as much as you can, because earlier detection means a much better chance of better treatment. And thank you for showing that resilience and being willing to share your story. By sharing your story, you are certainly helping to inspire others, and we so appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think people need to know that a cancer diagnosis is not a death sentence, and that there is life after
Absolutely.
cancer. So, look at my beautiful hair. You'll see in the pictures, I had no hair twice. So,
did you lose your eyebrows?
I lost my eyebrows. I lost my eyelashes. I had a terrible incident with false eyelashes that ended up all stuck to the side of my head after I tried to sleep with them on. So, yes. So it's all fun and games, but it's important to know that there is life after cancer, and that it does not have to be a death sentence.
1 in 26 women will get diagnosed with breast cancer in their lifetime. A breast self-exam is a highly successful way to detect early symptoms of breast cancer. Yet, most women do not know how to do breast self-exams, or they simply forget due to their busy lives, working and looking after their loved ones. PEP partnered with the Cancer Association of South Africa to launch an initiative that aims to both educate and remind, to keep breast self-exams top of mind when your top is off.
The Cancer Association of South Africa is so grateful and thankful to be working alongside a partner like PEP.
PEP donated nearly 500,000 pink towels to help remind women to check themselves at the exact moment they're able to.
I just feel like it gives you that sort of reminder while you are climbing out of the shower or the bath. It's a simple yet powerful reminder to check myself every day.
The towels contain a tag complete with breast self-exam instructions and a QR code directing women to the campaign website.
For all the women in South Africa, it's important to look after our health.
Thina singabantu abangomama sizimbokotho endlini sizi main switch. Yilwa i-cancer mayingakulawuli, i-cancer mayilawulwe nguwe.
Can't look after our families or do our jobs 100% if we're not well.
The Dry and Detect Tell initiative not only drives the conversation surrounding breast self-exams, but also inspires South African women to take action.
Ensuring that current and future generations keep breast self-exams top of mind when their tops are off.